he's spending most of his time in the crate. He doesn't want to come out of his crate, not even to go to the bathroom. You're getting quite concerned here. How do we work with this dog? We don't want to pull him out of the crate. What do we do with him? We can't train him. We can't socialize him. We can't do much. Well, we got one thing we can work with. That's his curiosity. Dogs just can't stop their sense of curiosity. They don't have it in them. So what we're going to start with is we're going to take some amazingly smelly and amazingly tasty treats, and we're going to spread them around the room where the crate's in, and then we're going to leave the room. We're going to make this so easy for the dog. Okay, we're going to set him up for success. So the dog, you leave the room, the dog is there with his crate door open, and we're going to, put the treats in various places, maybe one, 6 inches from the door of the crate, another one a foot, another one 3 feet, and then in various other places around the room. And once he starts to feel that he's getting these treats, nobody's going to come out and, gotcha. Once he starts to feel a little bit more comfortable, he's going to start exploring the room for treats. This is our first step in dealing with that dog. So we're going to let him do that maybe a few times. Okay, no pressure, nobody in the room, nothing bad happens. All he does is walk around the room, gain a bit of confidence, and goes back in the crate when he wants. The next step to this little process would be that we would spread the treats around, the same as we did before. Then we would sit in a chair and turn our back to the dog. So we're in the room, but we're not a threat to the dog. We're not looking at the dog. We're not talking to the dog. We're not trying to ask him to come over so we can pet him. We're just sitting calmly in the room. So when he's doing that good, then we can start to put the treats a little closer to us. And then we can turn to face the crate. So just little increments and little baby steps as we go here. Then at some point, a nice little trick too is to put a couple of treats on your feet. Treats on the feet. So he's got to come over and take the treats off your feet. You don't bend down, you don't pet him. That's going to mess up the whole build up his confidence thing, but we're just going to let him get close to us and get used to us. So you do this for a few days, and you just work really, really, really slowly with these type of dogs. But his curiosity is what we've got to go with. A dog who is not curious about anything and has never developed any curiosity is actually a totally destroyed dog. We've never come across that. I've never personally come across that. I have come across many shy dogs, many timid dogs, many fearful dogs, all kinds of different things, but never a totally destroyed dog. And with a little patience, and actually with a lot of patience, and a lot of time, these dogs really do come around and blossom into wonderful dogs. The human and dog conflict. This really is because of the fact that humans are bringing a totally different species into their home to share their lives with. The average dog owner knows very little about canine behavior. So this is where the conflict begins. For example, I'm going to skip the first one for now. Dogs dig because they are bored, people punish them. Dogs bark, people yell at them. Dogs counter-surf, people get mad. Dogs have a bathroom accident, people punish them. Dogs are lonely when they get left alone, and people blame the dog. People jump up to greet the dog, people punish the dog. I mean, what are the problems here? Well, the problem here is we're taking an animal who has natural behaviors that we've already discussed previously, but we want them to learn different things, human ways of doing things, because in the wild, wouldn't all of these behaviors be completely normal? I mean, scavenging for food, barking and pooing and peeing wherever they feel fit, and jumping around and doing what dogs do. In the wild, a dog would never get in trouble for that, but in our homes, dogs are getting in trouble for that every day. So this is where we have to realize that dogs are not little people in fur coats, and we do have to train them everything we need to know. Now, the dog's growl. I want to just talk about that for a couple of minutes. The dog growls, and what I see in my work is that people tend to overreact. and think their dog is aggressive because he growled. But we have to understand what a dog's growl is and what it's for and what is he saying and what was the context and where was the dog and what was happening when the dog growled. There's a lot of factors to consider here. But basically a dog's growl is a nice thing. It's a lovely thing. It's a wonderful thing. We don't want to stop dogs from growling. If we stop dogs from growling, what are their options? Well, they feel uncomfortable, they tell us. Nobody listens. Nobody either understands or they don't care. So he doesn't have a growl, so he's got to go to the snap or the bite. This is not what we want to happen. A growl is simply telling people, please back off. I'm thinking I might have to bite you if this continues. Like, this situation is not comfortable for me. So it's like a human. If a human was to say to somebody, please back off, you're bothering me, would we ridicule that person and say, oh my gosh, what an aggressive person, look what they just said to that person? Well, no, of course not. We have every right to express our feelings when we're not feeling comfortable. And dogs do as well. Remember, they're not a commodity. Dogs are living, breathing animals with their own feelings, with emotions. Dogs have a lot of emotions. They run on emotions, okay? So we have to let them have that, and we have to understand their emotions, and then that's where reading canine body language is so important. When the dog turns his head right there, he very clearly told you he didn't want whatever interaction or whatever was happening at that time to continue. He wants you to move away. So if you move away, the dog doesn't need to go to the next level. He doesn't need to ever growl. So if we set up our dogs for success, they should, in fact, never growl. I mean, they may still growl between other dogs and this and that, but if we make our dogs growl, as humans, we make our dogs growl, then we should look at ourselves and say, oh boy, what did I just do to make my dog feel he had to growl at me? Wow, let me figure that out. Walk away and sit down and figure that out. And then make sure you never put your dog in that position again. Because growling is simply, again, it's a warning. The dog is not comfortable. He's already showed us that he's not comfortable. But the problem is people don't see that. I get the phone calls all the time. It happened right out of the blue. Well, first of all, that's nearly impossible for a growl or something like that to happen right out of the blue. Just like it's nearly impossible for a person to have an outrage or something right out of the blue. There's always a reason for it. Always, always, always. We just have to be smart enough to figure out that reason. The only time we'd ever see a dog reacting strongly right out of the blue would be if the dog had some kind of major health issue like a brain tumor. That can happen in people too. They could have outrages just for no reason at all. But again, that's very rare, and honestly, I've never seen that. So again, when a dog growls, hey, take notice, back off what you're doing. Don't push him, don't go forward, don't try to engage him, don't try to make him go to the next level. That's just plain stupid. The dog is just clearly, in his most polite way that he can, telling you he's not comfortable with what's going on. So, for example, if your dog growls, I'll give you one. Well, here's an easy one. Your dog is laying on the bed. Somebody approaches him on the bed. He gives a little warning growl. He's not comfortable with people approaching him on his bed. So what do? Keep approaching him on the bed and expect him just to get used to it? No, of course not. Let's work on that. Let's desensitize him to people getting close to him on his bed. Let's give him a little more space in the interim. Let's set him up so he never needs to growl again. What if a dog growls over his food bowl? He's a food guarder. Well, he's clearly telling us, I'm not comfortable and I don't want you near my food bowl. So should we go up to the food bowl and grab it just to show, hey, I'm all that, I can take this food from you, I'm a human, you're just a dog? No, of course not. We should teach the dog that he doesn't have to be defensive around us with his food. Nobody's going to steal the food. Actually, what I recommend in most cases of food guarding is walking by at a distance, depending on the dog and what distance he's comfortable with. And again, you have to be able to read the subtle signs to know exactly when he starts to feel uncomfortable, but still under threshold. There's a bit of a talent to that. But I've worked with dogs of all breeds. I worked with a Mastiff who was a big time food guarder. People couldn't go in the room with this dog when he was eating. After about 1 hour with this dog of working with him, I had my hands right in his bowl and there's no problem at all. And what I did was change the dog's feelings about people being near his bowl. So instead of making him more upset and more defensive, I made him feel like, hey, people are good. People like drop chicken and stuff in my bowls. They don't try to take things from me. I don't need to defend that with them. And this is, hey, this is all good. So we just want to understand that growling is a good sign. We don't want to take it away. There's times between dogs that I will stop a growl if it's an inappropriate growl, but when you see that happening, you should probably contact a professional, because you really have to know when it's not appropriate and when it was appropriate. And for the average dog owner, they don't know the difference. All they do is, I seen a growl, something happened, and that was it. Do I stop it or not? Well, we have to go and we have to see what's going on in order to interpret that. But in most cases, generally speaking, we don't want to stop the dog from growling, because growling is a nice little polite warning that gives us a chance to correct our behavior. So, but try not to get to the growl. Try to notice the head turns, the lip licks, the yawns, the stretches, all these things, the freezes, everything. I mean, it's always there every time. Every single time. Dogs are very good at it. They come knowing it. Dogs that are actually don't even have their eyes open yet, little puppies, start to use calming signals. This is something they know how to do. So doesn't happen out of the blue. Just start learning more about it and figure out, again, what we did wrong, so we never have to put our dog in that position again. That's where the human-dog conflict comes in. People think that dogs should behave a certain way all the time. But that's expecting a lot out of anybody. I mean, that's like saying to a person, okay, I never want to hear you ever once raise your voice in your entire life. It's going to happen. People are going to raise their voice. People are going to do a lot worse than that. So let's give our dogs a break and try to understand them for what they are, and try to respect their emotions and their feelings, and learn how we can do things perhaps a little bit differently. Fear in dogs. This is a really big topic, and it actually could have its own course devoted to it in itself. But for this course, Enriching Our Dogs' Lives, I just want to touch briefly on it so you have a bit of an idea on how to deal with this. The first thing we need to know is that we have to know how to get our dog to realize that we are in control and we are going to look after him. So there's 3 things we're going to use for that. That's going to be leadership, management, and relationship. Now, we don't have time here in this course to go into those 3 components on how to build your leadership, management, and relationship, but you just need to know that that's what you're going to use to get you to the point where the dog is going to know that you're in control. Okay, one thing I want to mention is a question I get all the time. Does consoling fear work? If I try to make my dog feel better and pet him and hug him, will this help him with his fear? The answer to that question is no. You've probably tried this. I think we probably all have at one time or another, and it just simply doesn't work. We can't reason with the dog, and the only thing the dog sees from that type of interaction is that the dog sees that we are now afraid of this same thing, and he's even more worried than ever. Oh boy, you're worried about that? We're in deep trouble here. So we're not going to buy into his fear. We don't buy into kids' fears either. When they get afraid of something, we don't buy into it. Oh, you poor thing, how terrible that is. We try to make them feel better. And how we make them feel better is to give them confidence. How do we do that? By being confident ourselves. So what we're going to do when our dog is fearful is not reinforce the fear, but in other words, we're going to be calm and confident. So they're going to look to us for guidance. Okay? You show them there's nothing to be afraid of, everything's okay, and now we're going to move on to something else. It's not a big deal, nothing scary here at all. Now, one thing we need to know too when we're dealing with fearful dogs, in talking about not buying into their fear, etc., is that we have to control ourselves, number one. Before we can control our dog, we need to control ourselves. So we need to show the dog that we're in control by how we hold the leash. For example, if we tighten up on the leash, when another dog appears, if your dog is overreactive with other dogs, then this is going to go right down the leash and the dog's going to realize we're upset and he's going to become more upset. So we have to control our own physical self. We want to start by controlling our breathing. Keep the oxygen going to our brain so we can think well, and control the way we move. We don't want to, run away. We want to be totally in control, physically and mentally. Mentally meaning that, we're able to think, we're able to take control of the situation, and we're able to do what's best for our dog. So trying to convince dogs that everything is fine, letting, this doesn't work. Come on out here, don't have to hide under that chair, pulling them out from under chairs, pulling them out from under people. This doesn't work. If you think about it, it doesn't work with people either. If we have, for example, a fear of spiders, and somebody tries really hard to convince us